Coming up, Boeing spacecraft.
Lockheed spacecraft.
Google buys a spacecraft. Plus, when do we get to go to Mars? Yeah. Stay tuned. Tomorrow begins right now.
Oh, it's beautiful, Mike. Got the flag up now. You can see the stars and
Private space station.
And welcome to Tomorrow, episode 7. I have no idea for, what is it, 7.17 for Saturday, June 14th, 2014. My name is Benjamin Higginbotham, and with me, as always, is my beautiful, lovely, wonderful, and talented wife, Carrie Ann, and we'll be your hosts for this episode. Now, before we get started, I did want to give a huge thank you to the patrons of Tomorrow who helped make this episode happen. These are the people who have contributed at least $10 to this specific episode, and you can get more information on that at patreon.com/TMRO. We are indeed a crowd-funded show, so every dollar, you can contribute $1 per episode, $5 per episode, every dollar helps. And in fact, we'll talk a little bit about more at the end of the show. We are over the $500 mark. We are so close to our next goal, which will help us get some additional equipment for some social media integration that I think will be really, really powerful and popular and cool. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with some space news. Boeing has unveiled their CST-100 mock-up. They had a press event, and here are a few images of it, by the way. A press event on Monday, June 9th, 2014, and this was done in the facility in which they'll be making it. That's Orbital Processing Facility 3, or OPF3. Well,
I know.
And it's pretty much, so there are, the reason this is cool, and the reason I wanted to bring this up in the news, is that we just had the Dragon Mark II unveiling.
Right.
Now we've got the CST-100 mock-up unveiling.
Yep.
These some of the images. We've got the Orion spaceship.
Yes.
And then we've also got Dream Chaser, all concurrently being made
Yes.
at the same time, serving slightly different purposes. So we've got all, last week's, or the last episode we had was titled Spaceship, Spaceship, Spaceship. How cool is this that we truly do have like 4 different spaceships being made
Very
for
cool.
different things. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, why do we need 4 different spaceships?
Well, you want redundancy, right?
You do.
You want to make sure that knock on wood, something terrible happens to one particular company or one particular vehicle or one particular spaceship, that you have another way to get the people you have to where they need to be.
Absolutely.
It's just
Redundancy is
common sense.
good.
Redundancy
now,
is
the
good.
The chat room's giving it some fluff, saying, a Factor says, "Where's the toilet?" Mini Elon says, "Dragon V2 is better than this." It's ugly. Johan says it's ugly or ogly, as he
Sure,
originally
I mean
said.
it can be ugly, but that's not the point.
Its
Soyuz
entire
isn't
purpose-
beautiful either. Okay, so but it
Right.
gets the job done, doesn't it?
Its purpose. The CST-100 has a very specific purpose, and that is to ferry astronauts to and from the International Space Station. Now, Dragon V2, it might go further, it may not. I don't know what its purpose is. And Orion's purpose is deep space exploration, something
Right.
beyond low Earth orbit. Dream Chaser is also a ferry. Now, if we're judging the spaceship on design only, I think Dream Chaser wins here over CST-100 simply because it's a miniature space shuttle.
Yeah.
It's a cute, adorable little space shuttle. But both of them will be launching on an Atlas V rocket, so that will be interesting. They're both part of the Commercial Crew Transport Program. Actually, the Dragon Mark II and the Dream Chaser, all part of that program. And for this particular one, they were awarded $600 million from NASA. They're actually the largest award. Interesting thing here, to give them a little bit of guff. So they got the largest chunk of the contract. This is Boeing, right? Largest chunk of the contract. They are the furthest behind, right? Because the Dragon prototype was revealed.
Sure, but Boeing is part of ULA, correct?
ULA is part of Boeing.
Okay, so ULA is part of Boeing. So, I mean, they've been busy because people are suing them and stuff. And so they got other stuff to do.
I guess.
Besides just making a mock-up.
Even Dream Chaser. Well, that's just it. They're only in a mock-up phase. Like,
Sure.
both Dream Chaser and Dragon are in prototype stage.
Right.
And neither one of them got as much money as Boeing did. And they only have a mock-up that's cut in half.
Well, you got the scrappy little companies versus the big behemoth. right? The behemoth
guess.
is just simply going to move slower. Like, I'm sorry, but it just is.
Well, my hope is that this is foundation work, and that once the foundation work is complete,
I'm
it
sure.
much like a house, it's like it feels like nothing's going on, feels like nothing's going on, feels like nothing's going on, and the house is built.
Right.
Right. So I'm hoping that much the same way that will happen. Speaking of different spacecraft, the Orion heat shield is being installed. So Orion
This is really cool.
Yeah, the Orion is our next deep space vehicle. Think of it kind of like Apollo on steroids. This is for EFT-1, which is Exploration Flight Test Numero Uno, and it's set to launch at the end of this year, I believe, 2014.
Wow.
And its goal, so what it's going to do, it's not sending humans up or anything like that.
Right.
What it's going to do is basically prove out the vehicle. So we're past mock-up at this point.
Right.
So what it's going to do is it's going to launch, it's going to orbit the Earth, it's going to have a really high apogee, and it's going to come back down as hard as it can, as fast as it can, to try to simulate essentially a lunar re-entry. When you re-enter the Earth from the International Space Station, you're coming in at about 17,500 miles per hour or so, depending upon where you're at. When you're coming back in from the Moon, you're coming in at around 22,000 miles per hour.
Ooh.
And your heat shield needs to be able to withstand that additional friction as you enter the atmosphere. Well, this particular heat shield is, interestingly enough, is designed to accept a lunar re-entry,
Right.
but apparently it cannot accept a Martian re-entry. They ran the numbers on that, and it can't do a Martian re-entry into Earth.
All right.
Now, my understanding was the numbers were not that different between the Moon and Mars.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what the difference is there, or whether that's actually correct. Hopefully, someone in the chat room can clarify on that. The other thing to note is that it's an ablative heat shield. So unlike the space shuttle, which had those tiles underneath it, and they just kind of the tiles would heat up, and then you saw those pictures where, like, there would be a furnace or fiery inferno underneath it, and you could kind of hold it from the other side, and it'd be cooled on the other side.
Right, like crayons not melting.
Yeah,
kind of
exactly. So that was the space shuttle heat thermal protection system, the heat shield on the space shuttle. That's not what this is. This is ablative, meaning as it re-enters, much like the Apollo era, it just kind of burns away and burns off, and just kind of, it strips itself down, but it's designed to take, great amounts of heat. And it's using
Very cool.
it's using AVCO. Hopefully I'm pronouncing this right. It's you want to try it?
Yeah, I was gonna say I think it's phenolic impregnated carbon ablator.
It's Avcoat.
Avcoat and phenolic impregnated carbon, right? Ablator.
Yeah. Yep. There you go. So Avco.
Sure. We're
Sounds
gonna
like a
go with
commercial.
that.
There you go. So Orion making way, and Orion, again, the deep space vehicle. The next Falcon 9 launch has been delayed again, but it's not necessarily SpaceX's fault. In fact, this last Friday, they had a static fire, meaning they brought the vehicle up at the launch pad, they fueled the vehicle as if it were going to go into space, they fired the engine for a few seconds, but they never let go of the vehicle, so it never was able to commit to space. What that did is it proved out... Static fire, yep. What that did is it proved out the vehicle. It's like, yep, vehicle's good, the engines are good, we're ready to go, and Orbcomm was like, hold.
Ouch, man. Ouch. That just hurts.
Orbcomm, the customer on the SpaceX Falcon 9, has requested a delay to figure out issues with their spacecraft. They've got a constellation of 17 of these spacecraft that are going to kind of supplement and then eventually replace their existing constellation. It does require all 17 of them, and they're going up essentially 6 at a time. So, well, that's not entirely true. So it goes up 6 in the loader for this particular launch.
Right.
And then the next launch that they have will have all the other, I think it's actually 12, which adds to 18, but their notes on their website said 17. So I'm not sure how that works. But so you got 6 on this one and then 12 on the other one. So 18 for the constellation. And they're having issues. They want to make sure that the satellites are healthy before they commit them to space, because kind of hard to do repair work in space. Kinda. So we're holding. There is no new date set for the rocket launch at this time. At least no fully committed date.
Gotcha.
Bulgaria becomes a member of the European Space Agency.
Yeah. So ESA, or the European Space Agency, is an intergovernmental organization that implements space policy in Europe, for those of you who do not know. And all of the EU member states, out of all of them, only Bulgaria and Croatia have not signed agreements. I know, which is kind of interesting, I thought. But at the same time, I was sort of looking at it and thinking, well, what are Bulgaria and Croatia really doing?
Doing in space?
In space?
Well,
so
now
maybe they didn't feel a need to. Before?
Well, now Bulgaria is part of ESA.
So there you you go. It's going to provide the Bulgarian enterprises and research organizations to projects for development and implementation of high-tech products and services.
And congratulations, Bulgaria.
Go
Welcome to
Bulgaria.
the space age. Sounds terrible.
It does.
Sounds terrible.
Aw.
But no, I mean, every nation, in my opinion, everyone should be a part of a space program somehow.
Totally.
It doesn't have to even be a country, just so long as you've got businesses or something working
Yeah.
in space. You know, that's
You don't want to be left behind.
After 8 years, Venus Express is diving into the atmosphere of said planet. Check it out. So, launched November 9th of 2005, Venus Express has been circling our nearest planet, Venus, since around 2006 or so. It's been studying the ionosphere, atmosphere, the surface of the planet. We've been getting pretty cool imagery back, really good science back. But those routine science experiments are now complete, and what you're watching right here is what they're going to do to Venus Express. Poor little Venus Express.
know.
Which, by the way, is currently the only orbiting satellite we have at Venus.
Yeah, dude,
Only
what
one.
a shame that is, man.
Yep. So they're gonna ESA, speaking of the European Space Agency, is gonna command Venus Express to dive into the atmosphere. It's already done that, and it's gonna try to aerobrake and slow itself down using the atmosphere. And they're gonna try to get as much data as they can. So it's kind of one last final Hail Mary of science. There we go.
That's a Freudian slip if I ever heard one.
So it's going to slide into the upper atmosphere. It's going to aerobrake. It's going to be awesome. And what it's going to do is the data we gather back from that will hopefully allow us to help land other vehicles on similar atmospheres or something
Right.
in non-Earth-based atmospheres like, Venus or Mars or something like that. Again, landing a vehicle on Mars is actually very complicated. The atmosphere is thick enough to create a problem, so you create
Right.
friction, but thin enough where you don't have enough friction to help slow you down enough. So you've got this weird, it's not soupy enough, but it's just soupy, right? So it's this weird state of how do you slow down and not,
annoying.
not impact? Absolutely. So hopefully we'll get some really good science from the end of Venus Express's life. It's actually been it's been working pretty good thus far. They're kind of surfing it along the atmosphere. And apparently the status report I saw as of, I think it was yesterday, was that it was successful and it's still going. So
Yay.
huzzah.
Nice.
Google someone said in the comments, apparently I'm saying huzzah more on the show. Someone said in the comments for our last show that maybe huzzah should become a drinking game. I do not suggest that. You could get alcohol poisoning, and we do not condone alcohol poisoning.
It's okay, because huzzah is not a thing.
Huzzah is a thing. All right, Google has bought Skybox Imaging. We actually did a story about Skybox Imaging not that long ago, and check this out. This is from.
Is that to infer that Google watches our show?
Yeah, right. Larry Page is like, oh, tomorrow's on. Let's see what what we should buy from. I like how everyone is like, the director is laughing, Carrie Ann is laughing. Right, Larry Page doesn't watch the show. What was it we were talking about? Skybox. They have SkySat 1, which was launched November 23rd, 2013. If you look, this is not a still image. You can see this is Las Vegas, and you can actually see the cars moving along the street in Las Vegas taken
Creepy.
from this satellite. And the reason this satellite is such a big deal is that it's tiny, it's really efficient, and it's really low cost. Traditionally, getting imagery of this magnitude is scary expensive.
Yeah.
And you got to launch, a bunch of geosynchronous satellites. It's really hard to do. Or it doesn't have to be geosynchronous, but
Right.
so they can grab 90-second clips at a time, and this is what they look like. And Google has bought them. Now, what are they going to do with them? Not entirely sure yet.
Not entirely sure.
There's pretty good things you can use with it. Right? Google Maps is an obvious,
Right.
you could. Wouldn't it be cool? They have not said they're going to do this, but wouldn't it be cool if they launched a constellation large enough to cover the planet, and you could, in Google Maps, you could go live view of Earth right here, and you would have a live view of what that area. That'd be creepy.
I was just gonna say, stalker comes to mind.
A little bit, but
cool.
also consider what it can do for their traffic information.
Yeah.
Because they'll be able to see where there are, assuming there's no clouds in the way, where there are
Right.
traffic buildups. They could also use it for their autonomous driving vehicles. They could do some pretty cool things with this. They could also use it they could use the base technology possibly for internet. They've got Project Loon. That's where they take the balloons and launch them up, and then it becomes kind of a giant access point for internet. Well, instead of doing a balloon, what if you did satellites? What if you did low-cost satellites like this? Maybe you do imagery, there are many different things that Google could be doing with this. It's also exciting to me because it shows that a space startup can get bought out. It's not just the technology startups now. Now you've got a space startup.
Right.
And maybe Planetary Resources is kind of in that same camp. Maybe the hardware they're working on,
Right.
someone's going to be like a Microsoft, be like, ooh, we want that. It's a cool thing, I think. I thought it was a pretty awesome that it has happened.
Yeah, no, totally agree.
On that note, I think we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, our main topic, which is, seriously, when do we get to go to Mars? Gosh. All right, stay with us. Tomorrow we'll be right back.
Look into her face, determination in her eyes. She won't give up or quit or fall for little fashion lies. Filled with awesome expectation, this girl's a fascination. Nothing in her way will keep her from her destination. 'Cause she's fire walking, she's fire walking. When it's hot, she keeps on moving. Through the heat, keeps on improving. Yeah, she's fire walking, she's fire walking to be free.
And welcome back to Tomorrow. Before we get into our main topic of Mars, how am I going to type that into the show title? How am I going to make it whiny?
Yeah, I don't know.
In YouTube when I'm trying to, I don't know. I did want to thank the patrons of Tomorrow who have made this segment of Tomorrow possible. These are the producers of Tomorrow, and they have contributed at least $5 to this specific episode. So $5 or more contributed to this episode to help make it happen. Once again, we are a community-funded show, so your funding of this show helps continue to produce us week after week. More information at patreon.com/TMRO. I'm a huge fan of the Patreon stuff. Actually, there's some cool stuff we're going to be doing at Patreon next week, so stay with us, and After Dark, we'll talk about that. And speaking of, we'll talk about that in the third segment. Did you want to talk about the comment up first, up front? Okay, so this is from Fabio.
Yes. Another fabulous comment from Fabio.
He is a regular, solid commenter.
Yeah.
This good stuff.
Yeah, no, for sure. So Fabio says, the first job of colony on Mars will be to figure out what the technologies are, what the technologies and how to live cheaply and reliably there. That might go on for maybe 10 years before a quote-unquote Martian habitation system is really well understood. Now, I don't believe that people will wait for that to happen before expanding the colony. Many people will go to Mars before they're really ready for that. There will be accidents, mistakes, and death, but that's just the price.
Yeah, and that's a good comment, because it's kind of so the point of this segment is, what do we need to do to finally actually get to Mars? We've been talking about this forever. I mean, we've been talking about going to Mars my entire life. Not us, but I mean just humanity in general.
You probably have.
Well, I was born, I'm like, Mars! And then I peed. We've had these conversations about Mars for so long,
right,
and we keep saying, yeah, we'll be able to do it soon, yeah, we'll be able to do it soon, yeah, we'll be able to do it soon. But what are the remaining roadblocks to actually making it happen?
Right.
So when we look at what's on the horizon here, look at all the spaceships we were just talking about. We've got Dragon Mark II, we've got Orion, CST-100 probably wouldn't really be viable for Mars, but the first two probably could. Dream Chaser probably not viable for Mars, but there are two spaceships right there that will be ready within the next few years that could potentially go to Mars. Now, neither company has said that it's going to,
right?
But it could. Now we need something to lift the vehicle to Mars. We've got Falcon Heavy, which would most likely be able to get humans there, or at least a Martian Apollo 8 style, right? Kind of orbit Mars and come back. Although, wouldn't that kind of suck? I suppose. Well, question to the community: would you want to be on the first spacecraft that's spam in a can? Right?
Yeah.
Right? It's you and two of your closest friends for how long would that be? That would be,
Isn't there something that's like that?
Can you even Apollo 8 that, though? Because you've got to you need to kind of go there and stay there for a while before you
isn't
can
there
come back.
already a thing that's trying to do that?
Yeah, there's Inspiration Mars,
Inspiration
I think it is.
Mars, right?
Yeah.
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 That's pretty much exactly what they're trying to do.
But actually, chat room, people smarter than me, rocket scientists query, with the Apollo 8 style moon, right? Apollo 8 to the moon, right? It made it kind of a figure 8 around the moon. You went to the moon, you used the lunar gravity to kind of slingshot you back to Earth.
Brilliant.
That works,
Apollo
right?
8 too.
But doing the same thing on Mars. You get to Mars and you sling around Mars. You can't come back to Earth. It won't be where it was before.
Right.
So do you just make a really long journey on the way home and you kind of slingshot way around and, it takes 7 months to get there and 2 years to get back? What do you do? How does that work?
I don't
know either. So I'm asking the rocket scientists in the chat room live right now, and then also on demand. How does that work? I had not thought about that until we're live on the air. Okay, and then the second question part of that was: would you want to be that person who gets to go around Mars, but not actually land on Mars? That's for like the next craft or the one after that.
I don't know.
And then the questions become, okay, what do we really need to get there? So, and start building colonies. So the spaceship seems like if we wanted to just put boots on Mars right now, not right now, but we're calling it within the next 5 years or so, we could probably do that. Sure. The rocket, probably also built. SLS, probably ready to go. Falcon Heavy, probably ready to go.
Right.
So you can probably loft it up there and get humans there. So then what do we have left? We have life support.
Right.
Can we keep the humans alive that long? We've got radiation issues. Although there was a recent study that just came out. I apologize, I don't have it. I'm going to see if I can find it and put it in the show notes. And if I forget, someone call me out on it and I'll add it to the show notes later. That's happened before. But a recent study came out that said, look, we can use magnetic fields to help reject radiation for spacecraft. And it doesn't take nearly as much power as we thought because this is kind of front of plasma that we can use that we hadn't accounted for before. And so the magnetic field can be very, very low. And we learned this from looking at the magnetic fields on the moon, where there were huge swaths protected from solar radiation with a really weak magnetic field. And they're like, well, if the moon can do it, why can't we? And it turns out we can. And the trick is you don't have to, it's kind of like a deflector shield. You don't actually have to absorb the radiation. You just have to deflect it and move it on. So, all right, great. So we've got that. So potential radiation shielding, and I think it's like 1 ton to bring that up, and that should help you from protect you from solar flares, even the bad ones that could potentially kill you.
Right.
Water. I'm sorry, I said that wrong.
Water.
How do we transport that much water to Mars?
Yeah.
Or do we not? Do we grab it from? And then once we're there, how do we turn this into something that's not flagging footprints? Right. So. How do we generate food there? Have we figured out the colonization part of it?
Right.
Because we're still kind of everyone, it's easy to get caught up on the spaceship side and then on the rocket side.
Right.
But you got to figure, you need doctors, dentists, you need scientists, you need engineers on the planet and in the spaceship to make this colony work. Yeah. So what will it take to get all that? How's the food going to work? All of that fun jazz. So
are we ready for such a thing?
Are we ready for such a thing? And when is that going to happen? Because we feels like we're right on the cusp of this.
It does.
But are we?
Yeah, I mean, we sort of have felt like we've been on the cusp of it for a really long time now, right? Like anything, I feel as though we harp on this a little, but it's the space industry doesn't move as fast as the technology industry, right? You know, every year I get a new iPhone, and every year you don't get a new Falcon. You just don't, right?
Although that would be cool. Every year you get a new rocket, and I would argue, and this is not official stance of SpaceX, but I feel like they're working towards that.
It could be.
Right? They're working towards rapid development of new hardware. But yeah, your point is well taken.
Right? So, if that were true, right? If it was worked harder, better, faster, stronger, then possibly you could have a new Falcon rocket every single year, or a new Falcon Heavy every single year. If
I bet her she could not work the Daft Punk work it harder, better, faster, stronger. I bet her before the show she could not work it in, and she just seamlessly did that. I owe her $1. I went to grab it. Yeah, she's getting applause. So congratulations, well done.
Thank you.
But continuing your point.
Okay, the message still sits, right? If you could just clone SpaceX and they could work it harder, better, faster, stronger, then I think if we, and I say we as humans, not necessarily we as any particular entity, we're able to sort of up it, right? To just up our game in general. And we're able to mass produce these things and get it better and more reliable and all of those things. Then maybe in the next 5 years we could, and there's nothing wrong with boots and flags, okay, or footprints and flags and footprints. Is that
Flags
what the
and
phrase is?
footprints.
There's nothing wrong with flags and footprints until that's the only thing that you've done.
You can
see
start.
what I'm saying?
I think you can. That's a valid point. You can start with flags and footprints and go, look, we can make it here.
Right.
But you can't stop then. So that's what happened with Apollo. We
Right.
went
That's
and
the issue.
we made each trip longer and longer and longer, and then we're like, we're done.
Right, and that's I think the problem that we sort of have with that sort of situation is that feels very unfair, and that feels like you've cheapened the entire effort all the way around. And the idea is to again build in redundancy, make a backup system of the human race, make sure that, again, knock on wood, when something happens to Earth, that humanity can still live on. And that's a lot of hurdles to overcome, but you got to start somewhere.
So here's another question for you. The chat room kind of got stuck on warp drives for a minute there.
Oh, sure.
Right? And part of this, actually, there was an interesting article on IO9 or Gizmodo, one of the two, someone in that family, talking about warp drives, because NASA has been recently talking a lot about actually theoretical warp drives. The idea isn't necessarily that you're moving faster than light, but really you're bending space around the vehicle, so you're
Right.
not actually breaking any laws of physics, you're just kind of manipulating them, as it were.
But the
And so-
issue is
which issue?
the overall issue. It's not the warp speed issue. It's the coming to a stop and not ruining everything issue.
Yeah, so I read somewhere that when you come to a stop, like the radiation front that occurs would be considered planet killers, and so
So by the time you get to wherever it is you're going,
You
it
would
doesn't
then
matter
destroy
because
everything.
it's destroyed now. So cool.
I'm
We
not
need to
I'm
sort
not
of fix that
100%
part.
sure how accurate that is, and this is all theoretical as well. So then the question is, do we wait until we can figure out warp drive?
Right.
There's actually, interestingly enough, part of the reason I know this like this is we had a Space Vision 2013, I think it was, faster than light seminar,
Yeah.
and they picked up on that, and it went from like 5,000 views to 500,000 views.
Right, one of our videos. That's what we're saying.
in one of our videos in like 2
Yeah.
days, and like I'm getting alerts on my phone. I'm like, what has happened here? So it sounds like they're actually making pretty good headway. So should we wait for warp drive?
Well-
Because the time from here, using that drive, someone figured out in Reddit, actually in Reddit/r/space, I think it was, someone figured out that using that drive technology, theoretically, you could get from here to Mars in just over 3 seconds.
Wow, that's practically transport.
Wait, hang on. No.
That's practically
Wait.
like beam me up.
For those who are Star Trek fans, that would be approximately warp 4.
That's crazy pants, you guys.
That's pretty awesome.
That's
but it's sci-fi still. It's not real.
Sure, but
So do we wait for that? Do we put
don't
all
know.
of our effort into that? Or do we
all right, is it really planet killer? Like, can we go there? Because Mars is kind of a dead planet anyway. Can we just like go there and go? It's okay, guys.
go there and just sterilize it before we get there?
Sure. Whatever. Then we'll just be there, and we bring
So
everything with us?
Heldes brings up a valid point in the chat room. He says you can always wait for something better and never get anywhere.
Oh,
Valid point. Valid point.
That's like the the
Ghost 25
battle
will
cry of
Earth to Mars in
procrastination.
3 seconds is a wow. But yeah, so then, all right, so we're not going to wait, right? We're antsy. We want to get off this planet now. Let's do it. What will it take? So I'm asking you, community of tomorrow, what do we need to get to Mars? Obviously, we need a spaceship and we need a rocket. We need radiation protection, both on the spacecraft and on the planet. We need water. We need food. Those are the basics to survive,
right.
right? And a bathroom. A working non-Russian space station bathroom, because that doesn't work. So those are the things we need. Well, it's always broken.
I didn't say anything.
It's always broken.
I didn't say anything.
Those are what we need to survive, but what else do we actually need to colonize Mars? And when can we do it? When is this a reality? So do we do it in Dragon Mark II? Do we do it on Orion? Do we wait for the next generation?
Right.
You know, Elon has talked about MCT. Do we wait for that?
Right.
When is this going to happen? Is this 5 years away? Is this 10 years away, 15 years away, and 20 years away? And why? What do you think? Constructive comments, very gladly welcome on all of our different things. There was one last thing. There was also a great article, and this was actually in on Reddit again /r/SpaceX, and the title was "What do we need to be researching to put a colony on Mars?" Similar concept. It's kind of the inspiration behind this particular episode, which was, what do we need to be researching? What are the pieces that we're missing, and who's going to do that? And how long will that take? Let's just say
Yeah.
let's say SpaceX is ready to go in 7 years. So the rocket's ready, the spacecraft is ready, but are we as humanity ready, or are we missing major parts of the puzzle? I don't know. Leave your comments in the chat room. Let us know what you think. And I think it'll be an interesting conversation. We'll talk about it next week. And speaking about talking about it next week, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, comments from our last show, as well as, because we didn't have a show last week because we were on our anniversary, we did something called a Disney Jump. We're going to show you pictures of what the heck that is. It's not space related at all, but it's fun. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
1, 0. Liftoff.
The fleet of space shuttles were doing amazing things in space.
We've got all your space geekery right here.
And welcome back to Tomorrow. Before we get into our comments from our last show and the Disney Jump, I did want to have a huge thank you to the patrons of Tomorrow. These are the people who've contributed $1 or more to this specific episode. They have done this week after week. You know, if we do 4 episodes per month, it comes out to approximately $4 per month. Mm-hmm. The neat thing about Patreon is, let's just say you go, yeah, I like the Tomorrow episodes. I think it's really cool, but I can't afford any more than $2 a month. That's like a latte, right? I'll give up 1 latte to help support a show about space, but not more than $2 a month. You can set a cap. You can say, I'm going to give them $1 per episode, but never more than $2, and you can make that happen, and you're helping support a show about space. And the competitive part of me wants to beat the technology shows.
Well, yeah.
Right? Because on Patreon, there are other shows on technology. They're great shows. I love them. I watch them myself. I think they're amazing, but it drives me a little bit bonkers that a show about the future of humanity is making less money than a show about an iPhone. So please help us beat the shows on iPhones and do something really cool. I promise all this money goes right back into the show to do really cool things and make neat stuff happen. So patreon.com/TMRO for all of that. All right. Do we want to do Disney Jump first, or should we do the comments from last week's show? Dada, do you have the Disney Jump loaded up? He says maybe. Well, there we go. So here's what a Disney Jump is. We're in Florida. This is our anniversary. This was our anniversary is actually on the 26th, but we took the trip a little bit early because we thought there was going to be a launch there. So each year we go down because we were married at Disney World, and we go back and we have an anniversary trip. And this year we went in one day to all 4 parks in Disney. So you saw us at Magic Kingdom, Epcot, this is Animal Kingdom, and then followed by Hollywood Studios. We jumped on a plane in that same exact day. We came all the way back to California. We then did Disney California Adventure, followed by Disneyland, which means that in one day, we did all 6 U.S. Disney parks. And I'm trying to come up with a point system for this because I'm a nerd, so that other Disney geeks can do this too, where you jump from park to park, and then you get points for how many you go to. Like, you get extra points if you do the water parks, right? So it'd be 8 parks total. You get more points if you do Downtown Disney, the different methods of transportation, stuff like that. So that our trip was amazing. It was fun. It was fantastic. Thank you guys for letting us take the week off and enjoy it. But let's go ahead and get into the comments from our last show. First up
comes from Step by Step Gamer. Says, hey, I don't mean to alarm anyone, but there is a blue Lego figure in the thumbnail of the video.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, really.
I have no idea.
People are so crazy.
Blue Lego figure? I'm not sure what that means. All right, next up, Benjamin
Ellis.
Ooh, good name.
Oh,
good name.
Says, with all these new digital displays in the capsules, do they under what circumstances would they flicker, like in the movies during intense situations? What protection do they have to prevent screen flashing? I imagine just keeping power maintained and insulated from interference. What about solar flares?
All right, so great question, actually. This was an issue with the Ares 1.
Right.
If you remember, they have digital displays on the Ares 1.
Right.
And they were going to spend millions and millions and millions of dollars to fix this issue because you take a digital display and you shake it. And you can do this at home. Just take your microwave and shake it in front of you. No, well, you need some sort of digital display, and if you shake it, it gets blurry and near impossible to read.
Right.
What they found, and it's a super inexpensive and easy to do solution, if you flash it at the same rate in which you're shaking, it becomes rock solid. Now that's for the digital displays that have a refresh like that. So you just need to flicker the screen and suddenly locks right up. And it's cheap. It's super, super cheap and easy to do. So that fixes the flickering issue, depending upon the display technology, of course.
Right.
Radiation, I assume, is no different than any of the avionics on any spacecraft already, right? So the avionics already have to be protected from radiation.
Right.
And in fact, I would argue that the human body is probably a little more susceptible than some of the electronics to the radiation. And once
There should
you're
be
inside
enough
the
shielding
vehicle,
there. That should be okay.
should be enough shielding. You know, I don't know. Each manufacturer of these devices will have to have their own systems in place for all of that. But
Right.
you know, it is a large. And we actually spoke a little bit earlier in the show also about the ability for you to have the magnetic field that would help. But actually, then in the chat room they said, "But what about the avionics? Won't that mess with all the gear?"
Right.
Don't know. I have no idea. So, but yeah, I mean, it is a potential issue. That is also why, if you look at Dragon, they had the hardware buttons that were you could bypass.
Right.
But I believe all of the spacecraft. If you look at the Orion console, they have hardware buttons around the sides of the screens as well.
Right.
I think that's for any abort mechanism, so you don't have to like
Right.
fumble on a screen. You can just be like, no.
Any sort of emergency issue.
Exactly. And once you're in space, you know how much vibe are you really gonna have?
That's true.
This one comes from Ken.
Ken, that I looked at and said, Ken from Chicago. Oh, Ken from Chicago. Sorry, Ken.
from Chico.
I was very confused there for a second. He says, oh yeah, Dragon V2 is so awesome, so sci-fi, so 21st century. Its most epic feature is invisible. It was developed 2 years after Dragons first docked with the ISS. Imagine how future generations of Dragons could be developed.
That was the part of the comment that I absolutely loved. That something that I hadn't considered before, which is Dragon Mark II was developed approximately 2 years, or it was released to the public in the unveiling 2 years after Dragon Mark I first birthed with the International Space Station.
Aww.
That's not
SpaceX is sentimental. That's so cute, you guys.
well, not on the day. I'm just in general, like 2 years later, right? So
Right.
2 years for a spaceship design is not a long time, and it's a pretty big design change. So, what is the we were talking about earlier about you get an iPhone every year.
Right.
Well, dude, you may not have gotten an iPhone, you skipped a year, but you got a new spaceship.
This is true.
So, iPhone once a year, spaceship every other year. Pretty good trade-off.
I'll go
I
with
think it's
that.
pretty awesome. And then you look at how long some of the other spacecrafts are taking. It's a little bit longer, but maybe we're starting to hit the stride with rapid development of space products. That's going to be cool. And if you look at Dragon Mark II with the Super Draco engines being 3D printed, how much more of the vehicle will we be able to 3D print in the future? Or one would argue, if you could make the machine large enough, and understand this is way bigger and way inefficient, but play with me for a moment here.
Sure.
Make the machine large enough. Why not 3D print the entire vehicle? Ooh. Yeah, bad idea. I know. The manufacturing guys are going to be like, dude, you're crazy. That's not going to work for these many different reasons. But conceptually, just think about what you can maybe do with like much larger pieces and being able to do that from a
If we just make
spacecraft
humans
standpoint.
smaller.
Or we'll just fly Kerbals.
Yes, see?
We're only going to
Exactly.
fly Kerbals in the
All
future.
right, done.
I love the username from this next comment.
This username is ULA sucks. Politics got
How do you really feel?
I know, right?
What do you really think there?
Well, it makes me wonder if somebody just created this account just so they could have this name on top of this comment.
Most likely, yeah.
Which, 2 points you, sir. Or ma'am. Politics got the first orbital spaceflights off the ground, but maybe politics is now holding spaceflight back. Would an international, non-governmental organization be able to spur cooperation and collaboration across petty Earth boundaries and encourage work towards establishing a permanent human presence beyond Earth? An international space program? And is TMRO the organization that will lead the effort?
Join the organization of tomorrow to help us. That's the kind of the voice you need. The help our boys overseas. I like to think that TMRO is here to help inspire the planet to reach for the stars. I don't like to think that's why we're here, right? We're here to inspire everyone and get them excited about space travel again. And my hope is that you do have politics, right? You absolutely do have politics, but at least here in the United States, if the politicians don't do what you want them to do, you vote them out of office.
Yep.
And if you make space a topic that people care about, and you have senators that are doing things that are anti-space, anti-human advancement in space, and all just jobs program stuff, bring that to the attention of everyone, and then they get voted out of office, and someone who is pro-human advancement of space gets put in office, ideally. That is what I think our role kind of is to get everyone excited. We don't necessarily want to set policy or do any of that, but that that's why we're here. And Flags and Footprints wasn't bad. It served a role, and it created the whole tension between the U.S. and Russia at the time, or Soviet Union at the time.
Right.
Created humanity's finest moment, I think, right? Humans walked on an alien body. We've never done that again. We did that through Apollo 17, and some say the secret Apollo 18 mission.
Gag.
And it's a movie. It's a movie.
I know.
And we've never been back. And it wouldn't be cool for us to get that sense of wonder and exploration and excitement again, that sense of awe, and do it without the whole scare of the Cold War.
Right.
Do it correctly this time,
Right.
without the political side of it, because we want to, not because we're racing to do it because we feel we have to. I think that's more exciting than the Apollo era. Be it us going back to the moon, which some have say, well, we've already done, so it's boring. No. Going back to the moon, creating a permanent home, going to Mars, creating a permanent home, getting humanity off of this planet and into new permanent homes is a big deal. And actually, I think is it our next comment?
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll expand on that in our next comment. So there you go. There's my little emotional, from the heart, tomorrow moment. That is why we're here. That's why we came to be.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
That and I had equipment.
Next comment comes from Bernardo. It says, getting out in space as a species, not as this nation or that nation, doesn't sound utopia to me. It actually sounds inevitable. Stephen Johnson points out that every revolutionizing piece of technology we create increases our connectivity. The more connected we are to each other, the better we understand each other, and the faster we build a common global culture. Michio Kiko also talks about becoming a global type 1 civilization by 2100. We're fast paced at the path of realizing we're all Earthlings and we need a Earth flag.
Speaking of Earth flag, and kind of talking on the last comment a little bit, and kind of bonding together as a species and as a planet, as opposed to a nation or a country.
Right.
Do you know who the author is?
I don't offhand. I will find it.
So there was an author who did, in fact, create these flags, and I'd like to share them with you now. They used to be on shirts, but we can't find it anymore. First up is, in fact, the Earth flag. Check this out. So there you've got the sun. Here, I can do this. You've got the sun.
The sun and the
Earth
and the
our
Earth's
moon. And they also created a flag for all the planets. We're only going to show you a couple. The next one is Mars. So if you go to the Mars flag, there's the sun, Mars, and Phobos, and what is it?
Demios, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. The author is The Freck. TheFrek on Reddit.
And still active on Reddit.
Still active, yes.
As Zigger says, not to scale.
No.
But it's a flag.
It's a flag.
It's a flag. What do you want? Then he continues on, and here's the flag from 2020 from our solar system.
Love this.
Check this out. Go full screen for these at this point. So here you've got humanity is only present on Earth and the moon. And so you can see our local sun, the Earth, and the moon highlighted. Then he moves on to 2044, and it says, humans have settlements on Earth, the moon, Mars, its moon, and Ceres.
Yeah.
And 2087, I think, is next. Okay, good. This is where we're starting to figure out where the timeline comes into play. 2 more objects in the asteroid belt have been colonized, as well as Europa and Venus. I'm not sure. Okay, yep, that works. And then we go into Mars, I believe. So moving forward, this is Mars declares itself to be the dominant force in the solar system and claims all other planets as part of its empire.
Love it.
Yeah, isn't that fun? He's telling his story through flags, which I think are fun.
Planet. Oh, it's just so cool.
Right. Advancing again. Martian forces are pushed back to only a few areas in the solar system, so their flag changes. And then, of course, at the end, only Mars remains as the last holdout of the resistance. The war soon ends. The solar system is once more reunited. Still fun, clever flags.
Hilarious.
And then the last one that we're going to show you in this series is from the year 2204, which is humans have settled on every large body in the solar system. Terraforming is well underway, and most planets and interstellar voyages are beginning. I'm not sure how we're terraforming the gas giants, but let's ignore that for now, or how we've even populated the gas giants. I have no idea how any of that's working, but it's still a fun story to tell through flags.
Yes.
It's also an interesting story to tell through the idea of humanity kind of uniting, and then potentially us ununiting with Mars, because Martians, seriously.
Oh, just too funny. I thought that was just really brilliant. And
There are more, right? I mean, if you look,
more.
the flag, you can't tell, and it's not going to work. So we'll leave the URL to that in the show notes. And actually, the Redditor, who was the Redditor again?
The Ferg.
The Ferg had a store, hopefully...
Or the Freg, I'm sorry.
The Freg. Had a store, hopefully we'll get a store back, like for shirts. I think shirts would be fun. Or even posters, right?
Right.
Like having these posters on your wall. That's something
Yes.
we would certainly hang in our house. I think that'd be really freaking
Yeah,
cool.
absolutely.
All right. Were there any other comments? There was one more comment, I
was.
believe. Yep, this is from Craig Hare.
Craig Hare says,
Craig Hare here.
really loving that tomorrow begins right now bit. Also, where can I get that t-shirt? Spaceship, spaceship, spaceship! Busted Tees. BustedTees.com/spaceship will bring you right.
Slash spaceship.
That's what it is. That's the URL.
Yep. And yes, tomorrow, it is, look, calling the show tomorrow, I admit, a little cheesy.
A little bit.
A little bit.
Not gonna
I've
lie.
admitted that from the beginning. It is what it is. But I enjoy it, and I enjoy it being a little bit cheesy. I enjoy having a little bit of fun on the show. I think so. What makes us different than the suit and tie proper NASA shows was have their place. I mean, they're fine.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with them, but we don't need another one of those. We need something that's a little cheesy. So yeah, I'm enjoying the tomorrow begins right now, and because we make the open after the show's done.
What?
Shh, it's a secret. I'll try to make it super dramatic for you just this week, just for you. All right. I'd like to thank everyone so much for watching this week. It's been a blast. If you're watching live, stay with us. After Dark is up next. And that's it. We'll have a show next week. It's going to be awesome. So... Yay. There. This is what I was trying to remember. If you're a patron of tomorrow
Yes.
and you'd like to watch After Dark,
Yes.
we'll make that available to you on the Patreon page. So
Awesome.
patreon.com/TMRO. Be logged in. You'll be able to watch the After Dark episode. For those of you watching live, After Dark's up next. Thanks for watching. See you next week.
Be.
Absolutely.
It's just
Redundancy is
common
good.
sense. Redundancy
now,
is
the
good.
The chat room's giving it some fluff, saying, a Factor says, "Where's the toilet?" Mini Elon says, "Dragon V2 is better than this." It's ugly. Johan says it's ugly or ogly, as he
Sure,
originally
I mean
said.
it can be ugly, but that's not the point.
Its
Soyuz
entire
isn't
purpose-
beautiful either. Okay, so but it
Right.
gets the job done, doesn't it?
Its purpose. The CST-100 has a very specific purpose, and that is to ferry astronauts to and from the International Space Station. Now, Dragon V2, it might go further, it may not. I don't know what its purpose is. And Orion's purpose is deep space exploration, something
Right.
beyond low Earth orbit. Dream Chaser is also a ferry. Now, if we're judging the spaceship on design only, I think Dream Chaser wins here over CST-100 simply because it's a miniature space shuttle.
Yeah.
It's a cute, adorable little space shuttle. But both of them will be launching on an Atlas V rocket, so that will be interesting. They're both part of the Commercial Crew Transport Program. Actually, the Dragon Mark II and the Dream Chaser, all part of that program. And for this particular one, they were awarded $600 million from NASA. They're actually the largest award. Interesting thing here to give them a little bit of guff. So they got the largest chunk of the contract. This is Boeing, right? Largest chunk of the contract. They are the furthest behind, right? Because the Dragon prototype was revealed.
Sure, but Boeing is part of ULA, correct?
ULA is part of Boeing.
Okay, so ULA is part of Boeing. So I mean, they've been busy because they,
Coming up, Boeing spacecraft.
Lockheed spacecraft.
Google buys a spacecraft. Plus, when do we get to go to Mars? Yeah. Stay tuned. Tomorrow begins right now.
Oh, it's beautiful, Mike. Got the flag up now, and you can see the stars and
Private space station. Dragon.
And welcome to Tomorrow, episode 7. I have no idea for, what is it, 7.17 for Saturday, June 14th, 2014. My name is Benjamin Higginbotham, and with me, as always, is my beautiful, lovely, wonderful, and talented wife, Carrie Ann, and we'll be your hosts for this episode. Now, before we get started, I did want to give a huge thank you to the patrons of Tomorrow who helped make this episode happen. These are the people who have contributed at least $10 to this specific episode, and you can get more information on that at patreon.com/TMRO. We are indeed a crowd-funded show, so every dollar, you can contribute $1 per episode, $5 per episode.
People are suing them and stuff. And so they got other stuff to do.
I guess.
Besides just making a mock-up.
Even Dream Chaser. Well, that's just it. They're only in a mock-up phase. Like,
Sure.
both Dream Chaser and Dragon are in prototype stage.
Right.
And neither one of them got as much money as Boeing did. And they only have a mock-up that's cut in half.
Well, you got the scrappy little companies versus the big behemoth, right? The behemoth
guess.
is just simply going to move slower. Like, I'm sorry, but it just is.
Well, my hope is that this is foundation work, and that once the foundation work is complete,
I'm
it's
sure.
much like a house. It's like it feels like nothing's going on, feels like nothing's going on, feels like nothing's going on, and the house is built.
Right.
Right. So I'm hoping that much the same way that will happen. Speaking of different spacecraft, the Orion heat shield is being installed. So Orion,
This is really cool.
yeah, the Orion is our next deep space vehicle. Think of it kind of like Apollo on steroids. This is for EFT-1, which is Exploration Flight Test Numero Uno, and it's set to launch at the end of this year, I believe, 2014.
Wow.
And its goal, so what it's going to do, it's not sending humans up or anything like that.
Right.
What it's going to do is basically prove out the vehicle. So we're past mock-up at this point.
Right.
So what it's going to do is it's going to launch, it's going to orbit the Earth, it's going to have a really high apogee, and it's going to come back down as hard as it can, as fast as it can, to try to simulate essentially a lunar re-entry. When you re-enter the Earth from the International Space Station, you're coming in at about 17,500 miles per hour or so, depending upon where you're at. When you're coming back in from the Moon, you're coming in at around 22,000 miles per hour. Every dollar helps, and in fact, we'll talk a little bit about more at the end of the show. We are over the $500 mark. We are so close to our next goal, which will help us get some additional equipment for some social media integration that I think will be really, really powerful and popular and cool. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with some space news. Boeing has unveiled their CST-100 mock-up. They had a press event, and here are a few images of it, by the way. A press event on Monday, June 9th, 2014, and this was done in the facility in which they'll be making it. That's Orbital Processing Facility 3, or OPF3. Well,
I know.
and it's pretty much, so there are, the reason this is cool, and the reason I wanted to bring this up in the news, is that we just had the Dragon Mark II unveiling.
Right.
Now we've got the CST-100 mock-up unveiling. These are some of the images. We've got the Orion spaceship.
Yes.
And then we've also got Dream Chaser, all concurrently being made
Yes.
at the same time, serving slightly different purposes. So we've got all, last week's, or the last episode we had was titled Spaceship, Spaceship, Spaceship. How cool is this that we truly do have like 4 different spaceships being made
Very
for
cool.
different things. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, why do we need 4 different spaceships?
Well, you want redundancy, right?
You do.
You want to make sure that knock on wood, something terrible happens to one particular company or one particular vehicle or one particular spaceship, that you have another way to get the people you have to where they need to be.
And your heat shield needs to be able to withstand that additional friction as you enter the atmosphere. Well, this particular heat shield is, interestingly enough, will is designed to accept a lunar re-entry,
Right.
but apparently it cannot accept a Martian re-entry. They ran the numbers on that, and it can't do a Martian re-entry into Earth.
Right.
Now, my understanding was the numbers were not that different between the Moon and Mars.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what the difference is there, or whether that's actually correct. Hopefully, someone in the chat room can clarify on that. The other thing to note is that it's an ablative heat shield. So unlike the space shuttle, which had those tiles underneath it, and they just kind of the tiles would heat up, and then you saw those pictures where, like, you know, there would be a furnace or fiery inferno underneath it, and you could kind of hold it from the other side, and it'd be cooled on the other side.
Right, like crayons not melting.
Yeah, exactly. So that was the space shuttle heat thermal protection system, the heat shield on the space shuttle. That's not what this is. This is ablative, meaning as it re-enters, much like the Apollo era, it just kind of burns away and burns off, and just kind of, you know, it strips itself down, but it's designed to take, you know, great amounts of heat. And it's using
Very cool.
it's using AVCO. Hopefully I'm pronouncing this right. It's you want to try it?
Yeah, I was gonna say I think it's phenolic impregnated carbon ablator.
It's Avcoat.
Oh, Avcoat and phenolic impregnated carbon, right? Ablator.
Yeah. Yep. There you go. So Avco.
Sure. We're
Sounds
gonna
like
go
a
with
commercial.
that.
There you